guys can hang out here if you want. I'm going to introduce the next panel. No, I'm joking. So our next panel, I think, is on everyone's minds. Show me the money. Where's the traction in Solomo advertising and monetizing across platforms and different networks, the whole convergence. So that's what we're going to talk about next. And with that, I'm going to bring out CEO of Deliver, Ed Simnett, and his panel. Oh, you're good. All right.
We did.
Great. Actually, is this the order? I don't know. I'm not sure we're all in exactly the right order, but trust the guys behind the curtain, literally, to sort that out. So today, we're going to talk about not three little words. People are often afraid of three little words. Let's talk about three little letters that strike fear into the heart of chief marketing officers, advertisers, and app developers that have to do something with ROI, return on investment. So I'm sure everybody's had the experience of like, oh, I'm really excited, it's great, that's great. I've got a proof of concept. Wow, I've managed to get someone to actually spend some money at all with me. But moving on from those $50,000, $10,000 proof of concepts to real business is a huge challenge. And one of the key elements of doing that is, can you actually deliver, pardon the pun for my company name, can you actually deliver return on investment for your customers? So today I'm very pleased to introduce them. There's quite a lot of changes, so please pay attention. There will be a quiz later. Pleased to introduce a great panel to talk about this. Immediately on my right, Irina from GROUPON, leading daily deals company. Irina and I are slightly in opposition today because tomorrow Ukraine and England will be playing in the European Championship, which is an important game, so I hope we can keep things civil here. On Irina's right is Alistair Goodman from PleaseCast, which focuses on geo-triggered offers. To his right is Neil. Neil from Venue Labs, storefront analytics company. And then finally we have not Holger but Bob Upham from Yahoo, where he does business development focusing on location and maps. So rather than getting the panelists to introduce themselves, what I thought we'd do is we'd start by a question to sort of frame that introduction, if you like, and really getting to the heart or the meat of the questions here. So starting with you, Irina. Can you describe a case where you worked with a customer, a partner, a client, and actually were able to deliver that real scaled ROI? So, just remind us a little bit about the specifics of the business as well, but focus on that case where somebody really using your technology, your capabilities, saw real verifiable ROI. Irina.
Sure. As many of you guys know, GROUPON is a daily deal company, but really it is a two-sided marketplace and a platform for e-commerce. And basically anything that we do is to drive revenue and profit for our merchant partners, as well as provide discovery and curating experience for our customers. I think I would answer your question in two parts. One, on the user acquisition and transaction marketing front, we only spend when we can track and we can really monitor and deliver ROI. In other words, for every dollar spent in marketing, we anticipate and drive multiple dollars in the revenue from the users. But then on the merchant side, really is the first time when Bob's barber shop is able to have his own IT system and have discovery, purchase, redemption, and rewards for his customers powered by the mobile app. And talking about mobile, you guys know that GROUPON is the fastest growing company in the world, but the dirty little secret is that the mobile is the platform that made it all work and brought it together.
Great. Thanks, Irina. We'll get to Bob at the end in a minute when he can tell us about his barber shop. Alistair.
Yeah, so PleaseCast is a white label mobile marketing platform that mobile operators like AT&T and O2, credit card companies, and brands like L'Oreal and the North Face use to run mobile loyalty programs. And recently, O2 in the UK is one of the largest mobile operators in Europe, ran a 15-month program with Pizza Hut. The program was measured using Starcom's POEM measurement methodology, which measures paid, owned, and earned media across Facebook, television, radio, out-of-home, and also using our platform. And our platform puts geofences around, in this case, Pizza Hut restaurants. Consumers who have opted in get a tailored offer in real time based on their location, promoting specific menu items, different menu items throughout the day and in each venue. And in that program, over the 15 months, the platform delivered 142% more effective ROI than the average of the campaign, about 4 times the performance of television, and about two times the performance of online. And that's pretty typical. When we look at our platform, over 10 million opted-in users, 130 brands on the platform in 2011. We're seeing on average about half of consumers in our programs are regularly visiting stores, and about 22% are actually making purchases as a result of the geo-triggered offers they get.
Fantastic. That's great stuff. Neil.
So, location-based ROI is really something that, is near and dear to our heart, and actually, and what we found is, there's really 2 key issues that brands are dealing with. One is on the execution side, and the other side is really truly measuring local. So in terms of measuring ROI, I'd say that, we have brands that, we have about we have a couple hundred brands using our brand, using our platform, and one of the areas that, we find is that you have brands that are, like I have one great example is a brand with a couple hundred locations in the QSR space. And they were doing a brand refresh, and when you think about a brand refresh and the amount of resources that go into that, they did a really good job of planning, but when you got down to the local level, they realized that there's a lot more details there that weren't surfacing. And so using something like Venue Labs, which is a location-based listening and analytics platform, they were able to see to spot the inconsistencies and really shore up the ROI locally by seeing things like the POS system pricing and the menus being out of sync because of the way they executed the brand refresh. And so those are the types of things that we get really excited about when we think about how do we help brands really understand ROI at a deeper level by location.
Great, thanks. And Bob? Well, Yahoo derives almost all its money from advertising, and what's surprising, I think, is that we've spent in the past so much on science and the behavioral targeting. There's basically either behavioral targeting or geo-targeting for ads, and we spend so much money on the science of behavioral targeting, and it's still very difficult to do a good job at that. And geo-targeted used to be really sort of brute force. You either just target a DMA or some sort of administrative boundary. And now I think that's shifting a little bit. We actually make much more money in geo-targeted ads, even with that approach, than with the behavioral targeted ads. So I see a trend now to involve more science in the geo-targeting, whether that's context within the location or social graph within the location, what else is going on with the location. And I think there's a much bigger opportunity for much higher CPMs, much higher, better ROI in the geo-targeted space than what we've been seeing even now, which is pretty good as it is.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Bob. You touched there on the question, which I think is very important for this space, which is what local really means. And maybe, Alistair, I think this could be a good one for you to sort of jump on here. What is local mean within 10 meters? Does it mean within a kilometer? What is the real sort of local opportunity here, and how are people thinking about that?
Sure. Well, it used to be in the online world that the best you could get was roughly DMA with reverse IP lookup, and a lot of agencies got used to buying that way. But now, we set geofences that are a couple of blocks around urban stores up to a couple of miles around suburban locations. And really, local is a combination of things, right? So not only do we kind of combine proximity to the store, but then, for example, all our programs are opt-in, and when consumers opt in, they'll configure preferences, so things they're interested. I'm interested in fashion or fast food or sports or entertainment. There may be other data if a retailer or a credit card company links in past purchase data from a loyalty program, for instance. And all of those things can be combined in real time with an offer that's available nearby. And so local becomes what's going on around you, not just in proximity to the store, but also time of day, day of week. I mean, Starbucks, for example, can change the drink promotion based on a real-time weather feed. So as the temperature in a particular store location goes up, they can switch from a hot drink promotion to a cold drink promotion. And I think what we're starting to see now is this idea of location relevance, which is all of the context around where that user is, and then something that's pretty close to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'd like to add,
sure.
I think you should look at location in the context of the business and the product. For Groupon, for example, it varies by city and territory. For example, if you look at Manhattan versus Phoenix, you can get the same effectiveness of geo-targeting. In Manhattan, you have to be very granular because for a customer, a couple hundred feet is potentially going out of their way. Versus in Phoenix, users are used to driving a couple of miles to get that deal. And then in addition, there's a certain elasticity specifically to daily deals, with daily deals business, is how far are you willing to travel in return for a certain discount, right? So for a 50% discount, perhaps I'm willing to travel 10 minutes, but then for a 90% discount, I will drive, for 45 minutes, right? So all those things play in, and when we're looking how to target our users, we look at various factors that will affect responsiveness.
Okay.
I'd also love to point out, I think that local, the brands we work with from a brand perspective, the definition of local really is a function of the metrics and measures that brands are used to looking at, right? And so, I would say, for the brands we're working with, we've opened up a whole new sort of level of insight that really will help them, helps them go inside the storefront and understand what's going on there. And as, we're watching, as brands get more and more and deeper into our platform and those measures, they're starting to think about local differently. And so, I'd say, as all of us are looking at how we put more optics on local, brands are going to start thinking of it in a new way.
So you touched there, Neil, on metrics, and so far I think I've sort of been doing a little buzzword bingo. I've heard CPM. You guys haven't used terms yet which scream metrics to me. So if I'm the chief marketing officer and I'm pinning you to the floor and we're discussing what am I actually gonna get, what am I actually gonna get here? So Neil, I've heard you.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we've found with brands using our platform is when you think about a brand that I'd say 12 months ago really started to dive in and start looking at the metrics we can surface for them and the insights we can surface for them. We started to hear a theme from brands saying, essentially, metric overload. It's too much. I really can't. This is too much for me to understand. And what is the relative importance of a tip versus a check-in versus some other activity? And so, I think there's a great opportunity to build out metrics that help unify these different activities. These, customer interactions really local. And so on our side, for our brands, we developed a ranking system called VenueRank, which essentially is a local KPI for brands. And so what this does is it brings together, what we think are the most important aspects of customer interactions locally, and turns them into something that brands can follow and understand over time. And that's been very well received among our brands and
possible.
Great. And Bob, Yahoo's been a leader in as you pointed out, online and mobile advertising for a long time. And are there specific metrics that you're seeing people move towards and away from CPM?
Well, not necessarily away from the CPM so much as doing a more granular approach to the metrics. So we measure how long a user watches a video, where they are, where that video was sourced, and where they drop off. And so rather than just that they were on the page and then they went to a different page, we actually analyze at a very granular level everything that's going on that page. And this allows us to charge the advertisers more because we're being able to put more targeted, highly targeted ads. So it's not just about local, but it's about to part of the other thing that you mentioned about metrics, I think, is that it needs to be more self-serve. In the past, we would sell, Yahoo would do it too, sell these metrics to the advertisers. And I think the trend now is to allow it to become more self-serve. So the advertiser can go in, see how their campaigns run, in real time, without ever having to talk to a salesperson. And that, to me, is really key in terms of getting these metrics back to the advertiser.
So metric overload, self-serve. And Irina, Groupon's never worked in a CPM environment, I'm guessing, and you've got a lot of small merchants who, they probably don't, the word metric doesn't mean very much to them. How do you think about that?
I think it absolutely means everything to them. I think one metric that's...
You think Bob, so just to change, so we're doing the football thing now, sorry, soccer thing now. So you think that you think if you went to Bob's hairdresser, he'd understand what you meant by metrics? I mean, of course he understands measurement.
I would even venture to say that Bob's hairdresser relies on metrics for survival more than a media buyer at a Pizza Hut. And here's why. Bob needs to pay rent, keep the lights on, and feed his family. And therefore, the primary metrics is revenue. And I would argue for L'Oreal, Groupon, Pizza Hut, or Bob, that's the metrics towards which we need to optimize everything that the gentleman mentioned. And so I think here in the panel, we've got sort of clearly the performance side of mobile marketing, and then the sort of more of a brand space. And I think, especially in mobile, with local and otherwise, we haven't been pushing the envelope that much on saying, hey, you know what, time viewing video is great, site visits is great, but really this is a real business. You need to drive transactions and purchases for pizza sales, L'Oreal, and also, for small merchants. And so, when you say, what are the metrics? Sure, we'll look at a whole variety of things like, conversion rates on each step and time and other things, but only so long as they're a proxy for the likelihood of the person to buy. And so, for example, we established that the proximity to a location is a good proxy for conversion rate for the purchase, but that's not the only one, right? So a lot of other factors influence the purchasing decision. And so I think as you gentlemen are working with the media buyers in that space, I think really, really big budgets will be unlocked as soon as the sort of the test and learning exercises will transform into real revenue driving performance kind of cycles.
Sure. Actually, I'd love to jump in on that.
Just before you do that, Alistair, so we've got probably 8 or 9 minutes left. If people do have questions, I'll start to, a throng of people waiting already to line up and ask. But if someone does have a burning question, please do come to the mic and I'll recognize you in a minute. Thanks. Alistair.
So I actually agree with you, Irina, and two metrics we're seeing that are increasingly important. One is cost per lead, which is the same as a CPC for Google. So a consumer who is in a geofence, has opted in and raised their hand, has set preferences and said, I want a fashion offer, and they get an offer nearby that store. That's very much the same model as a Google model for CPC. And then actual cost per lead. So today we're delivering programs that either link a credit card or link a loyalty card, where the brand only pays when a consumer actually transacts. And in that model, we don't need anything at the point of sale like a mobile wallet. I mean, we're actually also delivering offers into mobile wallets. But in this case, a consumer can get a simple alert on their phone, go in and transact, and then they get another message before they even leave the store, which says, we've just taken 10% off this purchase, you'll see it as a statement credit at the end of the month. And that could be on your credit card bill, that could be on your carrier bill, and that could be points into a loyalty program as well. And so I would agree. We're seeing the direct ROI measurement increasingly important in mobile, and one that I think the world is going to increasingly shift towards.
So I think that's pretty interesting stuff. But one question that often comes back, and Alistair, you kind of sort of touched on it. How do you do this without being? And he's going to say mobile payments. He said it. Look, he said mobile payments. How do you do this without actually being in the mobile payments space? It feels like revenue absolutely is the thing that ultimately is the metric or the goal or whatever you want to call it. Are there good ways of dealing with that without being actually in that payments?
Well, look. Mobile marketing, payments, and loyalty are all converging. The Apple announcements last week certainly point to that, and what we're seeing with everybody and their grandmother launching a mobile wallet. What's been interesting, and you can see this, for example, with ISIS and others, the realization has been it's not about the financial transaction, right? Because that's a very efficient value chain. There's no more dollars to be extracted from that. All the mobile wallet companies now are all looking to how do we integrate offers into that wallet? How do we actually integrate loyalty programs into that wallet? When you have a payment instrument linked to a program, and this is what we're seeing in our programs today, you get that closed loop measurement. In real time, you know that a consumer got an offer near the store, they walked in, they transacted. And ultimately, that's what, whether you're a small merchant or whether you're a big brand, that's what all of the merchants are looking for mobile and location to deliver. And in our view, that's where it's all headed. And it's going to be inextricably linked to payments in some form or another.
Makes sense. Neil?
I'd say on the part of ROI when it comes to actual revenue, I absolutely agree with the sentiment here. And one of the things that we're really excited about is a lot of our brands who are looking at a lot of these different metrics. At the end of the day, revenue matters, whether you're a local mom and pop shop or a brand with 14,000 locations. In that case, we're working with brands to essentially bring in their own proprietary data sets so they can start to answer these questions, and more importantly, correlate them with these new metrics that they have never seen before or really thought about how they fit into their business. And so as those correlations become understood, which really is a brand-by-brand exercise, then I think, being able to understand a lift in location engagement can turn into X dollars of revenue for that location or group of locations. And so those are the types of things we're driving towards, I think, along those lines.
Bob, anything to?
Well, yeah, and just to continue to follow on that thread, I think what we're seeing now too is the big challenge before in local advertising was feet on the street. It was really hard to knock on all those Pizza Huts and beauty salons, and now the self-serve mechanisms for campaigns and for metrics are becoming so great. And what else is happening is apps like Foursquare, where you can expose the check-in data if you're a small pizza shop or a bar or a restaurant, so you can actually see who's checking in, when they're checking in. You can push offers to them. You can learn about who's checking in at what times, and all this self-serve model is really making it much easier for that long tail advertiser to get online and do business and buy. So this I think is where these metrics really can help. Not as Ariana said, not the big bands as much, but the smaller people. I mean, those are the people that are actually buying the product. They have high intent. They're walking by that store and they see an offer and they want to go in and get it.
Okay, great, thanks. No questions? I'm just still. Oh, we have one question. Run.
Just a quick question. You guys are able to do things with your technology that is somewhat intuitive, like give someone a deal if they're in a store. But with the data you guys are learning, are you able to learn that there's other ways to drive ROI through, like, if someone's at my competitor's store, I can give them a deal to actually bring them next door to my store or even down the block? So I think someone mentioned that people in Phoenix drive a long way to go get a deal. Maybe they'll actually drive a couple more miles or 10 miles even if they learn about that deal. Is there any way to make, I guess, less intuitive
So there's the beer and nappies type examples, where people who buy nappies tend to buy beer because they're stuck at home with the baby. That's that type of, well, it's an old example, but actually, so Bob, you talked about context. So thank you for the question. You talked about context a little bit when we were discussing this earlier. I mean, are you seeing these sort of mixed, these mixed ideas, and maybe sort of like working out where someone is might drive something somewhat related but not directly?
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening in local search. I mean, you can see, if you're on a mobile device, for instance, you might be presented with different options. If you look for, movie theater, you'll see the movie times because it knows you're on a device and you want to see the movie theater. Or you want to see what you're interested in going to a show right then. But all that social graph data is available. Who's around you, what time of day it is, maybe even who's in the car with you, for instance. Which, by the way, is not thought of. That car device is often not mentioned as a mobile device, but there's an awful lot of, and I think it's lagged. The technology in the auto manufacturers has lagged. Certainly, everything you can do on the internet, you'll be able to do in the car, and you know where the person's going, you know exactly where they are. So there should be a lot of highly relevant content delivery based on the location of that car.
Makes sense. Anybody else have any comments on sort of competitive couponing type ideas? Have you seen
Bad idea to do conquest marketing. Better idea to put a larger geofence around a trading area and get someone when they're in a mindset to make a purchase, but before they've actually walked into a competitor store.
Clear, crisp, to the point. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay.
I could make a closing comment. I think, it's great to be having sort of very scientific conversations about advanced technology. But if you look around at, what we actually have right now, and going back to your question about should everybody have a point of sale, et cetera, I was talking to L'Oreal, for example, last week. The point I'd like to make is, for starters, would be great to at least enable people to purchase the lipstick and foundation in the app at a minimum. So some of the very basic, kind of straightforward things that are seemingly intuitive are not there yet, and so we should fix it ASAP.
Great. Thank you very much. So I wrote three things down. I wrote self-serve, I wrote cost per lead, and I wrote revenue. So maybe those are three things you can take away from this half hour. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.